Welcome to Garden Plants with Jim Putnam. Let's talk Empress of China Dogwood. Empress of China Dogwood, or Cornus elliptica. It was previously Cornus angustata, Cornus cusa angustata, Cornus captata, or something like that as well. This one's gone by a lot of different names, but currently it's Cornus elliptica. This is an evergreen Chinese dogwood. It's non-invasive for those of you who would be concerned about that. It is evergreen again. The leaves do fall off as new foliage comes in the spring. So it's although it's holding these beautiful shiny green leaves through the winter, they do actually come off and new ones replace it in the early spring. This one can get 12 to 20 feet tall and probably equally as wide if you let it. It can be the height and width can be pruned, and I'll talk about that later in the video if necessary. Growth rate, this one has actually jumped up pretty quick. The first year it literally did nothing. And then the second year it actually doubled in height. It actually put on about 3 feet in growth. So I think if it's healthy and happy, this thing can probably grow 2 to 3 feet a year. Empress of China Dogwood is a blooming machine. This thing can have 150 flowers on a single branch, almost flower to flower. The flower parts on a dogwood are actually, the actual flower parts are insignificant right in the center, but it has those beautiful white bracts that we all love. 4 bracts surrounding an insignificant flower. Incredibly showy. This one will bloom a little later than our native dogwoods, usually late spring, early summer. And then it's followed by a strawberry-like red fruit that's almost as decorative as the flowers. These are hardy in zones 6 to 9. I think out in zone 6A, you're probably going to see this thing thin a little bit more in the winter than you would in warmer zones. If you wanted to put this in a large container, you probably could and control some of that height, but you'd want to do that in warmer areas. My Empress of China Dogwood is in a lot of sun, and you can see how full and happy and everything it is here. I think at least a half a day sun is what you're going to want on this one. Our native dogwoods tend to like half a day sun or maybe even slightly less than that. This one definitely, I lean more towards sun. So where are we going to use an evergreen dogwood that gets 15 to 20 feet in height? I think this would make a perfect corner foundation piece. A lot of people are always looking for small trees to put on the corner of the foundation to get some height. This is a great choice for that. I'm actually using this as a screening plant, which is kind of interesting. You wouldn't think of dogwood as a screening plant, but it keeps the foliage right down to the base. A little bit of tip pruning on that will probably help in the future. And it's enclosing my front garden space. I already talked about it. Could go in a large container if you wanted to do that. Great understory tree anywhere in your landscape, honestly. I think a lot of people are looking for trees that only get 15, 20, 25 feet in height. This is the perfect choice for that. In terms of planting your Empress of China Dogwood, make sure it's in a well-drained space. We wouldn't want this thing to sit in water. I've got clay soils. I mound everything up just a bit in that. Again, well-drained soils, that's really the only requirement for this plant. This Chinese evergreen dogwood is anthracnose resistant, and which has absolutely devastated our native dogwood populations. So that's one giant benefit to this tree, is we don't have to worry about that. Cornus cusa is considered deer resistant. I actually don't know on this plant whether it is, but I would imagine that it is, since they're very closely related. These can be pruned after they flower in the spring lightly. If I needed to get it under control a bit, I could prune it at that time. Keep in mind that you won't get the red fruit where the flowers were if you do have to do any cutting on it. If you have just a crazy limb on it somewhere, I've got it next to my lawn and I'm going to get limbs out here onto my lawn. Those can just be cut off whenever. Don't stress that. That can be done in June or January. It doesn't matter if it's one limb here or there. General pruning though, I would do it after it flowers. I will fertilize everything in my landscape in late February, early March with a organic fertilizer one time a year. That's it. This plant I don't think is all that drought tolerant, and it's great at letting you know when it's dry. It will get some interior yellow leaves that will start to drop on it. If you see that on this plant, assume that it's dry and drag a hose over to it and water the area thoroughly. Don't just water it right at the base, water the whole area around it. But again, not drought tolerant, but very good at letting you know. It won't just drop dead, you'll see some interior thinning on it and you'll know to water it. That's kind of it. This is a very low maintenance plant with just a giant show in the late spring, early summer, then again in the early fall, and then this beautiful foliage. I'm shooting this in December, so I can really show off how beautiful this plant is in the wintertime as well. Thank you guys for following the channel, and don't forget to subscribe.